back with comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol. I tell you what worries me. I was watching a documentary about the Great Depression in the US in the 20s during lockdown, the long lockdown last year. I just wanted to know how all that shit happened. And to put it very simply, it was people gambling on the stock market. The stock market went up in basically a vertical line in the couple of years before the depression. So everyone was like, let's fucking invest in the stock market. Let's throw our money in the fucking stock market. And no one really knew what the fucking stock market was. A couple of bankers knew, but the general population didn't know what the fuck was going on. All they saw was they put money in the stock market goes up, yeehaw. So during the latter part of the fucking 20s, everyone started throwing money into the stock market. The fucking paper boy on the corner, the taxi driver, everyone. Idiots who knew nothing about investing were just scrounging together their last couple of fucking coins and throwing it on the stock market. And they had a pretty good run for about a year and a half, 2 years, and then it all fell apart. The stock market bubble burst, and that was it. Like 10 fucking years of the Great Depression. There's only so far you can inflate things before they fucking burst. But what I remember from that documentary is one of the experts, the historian, said, if you see people rushing for the stock market en masse, then we're in big trouble. And I think we're in big trouble because the last 5 or 6 friends I've seen of mine have all told me about getting into the stock market lately. And that is not a good fucking sign. When people in my gravitational pull are starting to talk about the stock market, things aren't going very fucking good. If history is any fucking guide, we're in trouble. The circumstances around getting into the stock market are different from the Great Depression. In the Great Depression, the stock market was skyrocketing, so people were just fucking throwing money at it and getting good returns. Now people are getting into the stock market because bank saving interest is like 0. So if you just leave your money in the bank, you're fucked. It goes down like 3% every year. So it's worth throwing your money in the stock market, trying to get fucking an extra couple of percent a year. But still, history doesn't repeat. It rhymes. A friend of mine said that to me a couple of weeks ago and I shat on him. And then I was watching a YouTube lecture of some smart cunt and he said history doesn't repeat. It rhymes. And I'm like, that is very smart. It does rhyme. It's the same as saying same shit, different smell. But it really is a fucking concern when people in my circle of friends are starting to talk about the stock market. I went to dinner last Saturday night with a mate of mine, and somehow the conversation went to the stock market, and I said, oh, I actually bought some stocks not long ago. And he's like, so did I wasn't going to tell you, because he thought I was going to shit on him for buying stocks. But he was happy to hear that I was in the stock market game as well. And when I heard he was in the stock market game, I was very fucking concerned. I'm like, this is not a good sign for the economy when me and this idiot are talking about fucking stocks over Szechuan beef. I'm part of this as well. I'm an idiot too. For those of you who don't know, I'll just give you a quick little rundown on my fucking little investment trading history. I think it was about October last year. I was researching Bitcoin and Ethereum. I had been listening to fucking podcast after podcast after podcast about Bitcoin during lockdown, and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to buy some Bitcoin. It was at $20,000 at that point, and I was going to scrape together whatever fucking money out of my superannuation, and I was going to put it all on Bitcoin. And I'd worked it all out, and just before I went to buy some Bitcoin, I thought I'd run it past my Oracle and investment advisor, Dino, who's a personal trainer now, but he used to smoke bongs in the cupboard in his house so the smoke wouldn't escape to the rest of the house. This is what I'm talking about here. Anyway, Dino didn't know that much about Bitcoin, but he's like, I'm about to buy a share. It's going to go through the roof. I'm like, fuck Bitcoin. I'm on Dino's share. So I bought a bunch of this fucking stock, and almost the second I pressed purchase, it went down about 38%, and it really hasn't recovered since. And Bitcoin and Ethereum have fucking tripled. But Dino fucking assures me it will be going up sometime soon. When, Dino? When? Anyway, that's my investment history. I have one stock and it went down 38% on the day I bought it and has never come back to the green. So anyway, back to the story. Me and my mate are sitting there over Szechuan beef, talking fucking stocks. I'm talking like I'm an expert. I'm talking about charts and dividends and fucking all this bullshit. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I've never even looked at a chart. And if it seems like I'm sounding like an expert, my mate seems like he fucking runs a hedge fund. He's a fucking electrician. So we're talking stocks and I'm really getting worried. I'm like, should I just pull my money out? This is fucking crazy. I'm speaking to an electrician about fucking stocks. He only got into it fucking 2 months ago as well. So anyway, he's telling me about a couple of stocks he's bought that have gone down. And I'm telling him about my stock that went down. And then he's like, I've got this fucking tip for you, man. And that really shook me to the core. I'm like, fuck. Everyone has a fucking stock to tip you as well. The last 5 people I've met have fucking tipped me stocks. He's like, you've got to get on this one, man. Trust me on this one. And I'm like, I have to pull out my money tomorrow. I'm going to take all my money out. I'll just take the loss because this shit is going to fall apart very soon. And I don't have much money in the stock market, by the way. I need to remind you that. I have about enough to buy a 2008 Honda Civic. That's about it. All I'm trying to do is turn that Honda Civic into like a Mitsubishi ASX or a Pathfinder or something. That's all I'm trying to do. So my mate is like, get whatever money you've got left and you've got to put it in this stock. He's like, Paradigm Biopharmaceuticals. And I'm like, what the fuck do you know about biopharmaceuticals, you fucking electrician? He's like, I've been reading all the reports on it and the business structure and the manner. I'm like, shut the fuck up. What the fuck do you know about biopharmaceuticals, you idiot? And he's like, no, I actually got given this tip by a guy at my wife's work. His wife works in a cafe, by the way. She's a barista. She's not a merchant banker. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, at least it's not his idea. Someone gave him this tip. That relaxes me a little bit more. So I'm like, all right, tell me more about this fucking Paradigm Biopharmaceuticals. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And when he's telling me all this shit I wasn't listening to, I'm like, I wonder who gave him this tip at his wife's work. I'm like, does a real investor, stockbroker, or whatever the fuck they are just walk into a cafe and start rolling off tips? And I'm also thinking, how much fucking time are you spending in this cafe for the fucking tips to start flowing? So anyway, he's telling me more about this fucking stock that I'm never going to buy. And I'm like, just hold it there. Who gave you this tip? He's like, nah, man, this is a good fucking stock. The guy told me, man, he said it's going to go to $100 by the end of the year. It's at about $2 now. So I'm like, it's going to be worth more than the biggest banks in Australia. This one is going to be worth more than the biggest banks in Australia. Is that what you're telling me? He's like, it's going to be big, man. You got to get on it. I'm like, all right. Who gave you this tip at your wife's work? And he was real fucking hesitant to tell me. I'm like, who was it? And he's like, the guy that delivers the cheese. I'm like, are you fucking insane? Why are you wasting my time? I thought it was a fucking merchant banker coming in from Ireland or something. The guy who delivers the fucking cheese. I wouldn't even listen to the guy who's delivering the cheese's opinion on cheese, let alone the fucking stock market. And when he told me that, I'm like, we are in big fucking trouble. If it's all the way down to the guy who delivers cheese to the cafe, we are in some real fucking problems, and I'm pretty sure we can't reverse out of it. There is no one under the guy who delivers the cheese. That is the lowest rung in that chain. There's the guy who makes the cheese, who's higher than the guy that delivers the cheese, and then there's the guy who makes the sandwich, who's also higher than the guy who delivers the cheese. We are down to the guy who delivers the cheese. Pull your money out of the stock market now. It's gonna collapse. And then a couple of days later, he calls me up. He's like, I've got another one for you, man. Look into this one. This one's a sure thing. And I'm like, who gave you this one? He's like, it's a good one, man. I'm like, who gave it to you? And he's like, my wife's boss. I'm like, so now the guy who owns the cafe is involved as well. So now the guy who delivers the cheese is in the stock market, the guy who makes the sandwich is in the stock market, and the guy eating the sandwich is in the stock market. That is too many people. That is too many low-rung people. Jesus Christ. I need to get out as soon as possible. As soon as my money gets even, I'm out. All right, that's it for me tonight. If you're enjoying the podcast, give it a share around. Hit me up on social media, Boyle Comedy on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I'll see you the fuck later.